And now, Kaity Tong, Marvin Scott, Gary Gerard with sports, and Bob Harris with the weather. The Emmy Award-winning Channel 11 News at 10.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Tim Malloy in for Marvin Scott tonight. Moments of terror at Kennedy Airport as a plane catches fire on takeoff.
Another heart-pounding white-knuckle emergency at a New York City airport. But miraculously, this one turned out okay. Only minor injuries reported. Let's go live now to Dave Browdy at Kennedy with the very latest on this horrifying accident. Dave?
Kaity, what you are looking at is the wreckage of what was TWA Flight 843. A Lockheed 1011 fully loaded and ready to go to San Francisco this afternoon. What happened was they were starting takeoff. It was 5:42 p.m. and everything went wrong. There were 275 passengers and a crew of 16 on board the TWA L-1011 as it roared down runway 13 right at Kennedy Airport towards Rockaway Boulevard in Long Island on a takeoff run for a flight to San Francisco. An alert air traffic controller in the Kennedy Tower spotted the fire first, just as the plane reached takeoff speed 180 miles an hour with its front wheels in the air.
The control tower advised the pilot that there were flames coming out of the rear where there was an engine on the L-1011. He aborted the takeoff, which it hadn't been fully engaged, and brought the plane down, skidding it off the runway. And in a matter of seconds, they were able to get all the passengers off of the plane through the chute.
The pilot had managed to bring the plane to a halt in a grassy area near the end of the runway. And as flames began to spread, a lieutenant and two officers from the Port Authority Police raced to the scene.
They were mostly in shock. They were just saying, let's get out of here. We were trying to get them away from the plane as fast as possible.
Were they any of them looked very injured?
There were some people crying. There were some people mostly in shock.
Firefighters poured heavy foam on the plane as the rescue continued. It wasn't a miracle. It was a well-practiced drill. And within minutes, all of the passengers and crew had been accounted for. There were a few injuries, but not many, considering the back of the plane was completely gutted and the flight to San Francisco was fully loaded with close to 18,000 gallons of highly flammable jet fuel. Which brings us to the question of why this happened. As of the moment, the National Transportation Safety Board is on the scene, but is not yet talking to reporters. The Lockheed 1011, owned by TWA, is an old aircraft with a long history of maintenance problems, and TWA is in bankruptcy. So the questions about possible cutting of corners are obvious.
TWA is still a strong airline operationally. They run hundreds of flights a day. I wouldn't jump to any conclusions about that at all.
Along with the head of the Port Authority, the mayor, the fire commissioner, and the police commissioner raced to the scene. They also consoled survivors. And now the real work of the investigation begins. We have now what we believe to be the final count on injuries. A total of 35, none of them major. Quite an accomplishment. 34 of them were to passengers, one to a Port Authority police officer helping in the rescue as the fire got bigger and bigger just before they got it out. Now, we are told that the National Transportation Safety Board will hold a briefing tonight. It could come at any minute. We will try to bring you whatever they have to say about the cause of this accident out here at Kennedy. Reporting live from Kennedy Airport, I'm Dave Browdy for the Channel 11 News at 10. Now back to you in the studio.
Okay, Dave, let me ask you this. This happened at just about the busiest time for Kennedy Airport, virtually rush hour for them there. Just how messed up did everything get?
Kaity, this airport was entirely shut down at what is their peak hour for departures to Europe. It only recently, within the past 45 minutes, really got back into service. The first flights got out, and no flights have yet come in that we have seen. There is only one airport runway that is operating at the present time. That is a very little bit of the capacity, and many flights are delayed. Many others have been diverted.
So you only got one runway open, and no doubt there are planes stacked up over Boston and Philly waiting for all this to clear. Is that the way it works?
That's exactly what happens,
Yeah.
Tim. Some flights get sent as far away as Atlanta if they're coming in from Europe.
So the status right now, one more time, is?
The airport is open again. There is one runway that is operating. There are some flights that we see over there that are starting to take off. Some of the backlog is getting out of here, but as of yet, there aren't very many flights coming in.
Okay. All right, Dave, good work. Thank you very much. Passengers aboard TWA Flight 843 no doubt survived moments of unbelievable terror and panic where their lives are literally hanging in the balance. It goes without saying that they are very lucky to be alive right now. Our Ed Miller is at the TWA terminal with their story. Ed.
Tim, when you come close to death and somehow manage to escape, it changes you. Just ask the passengers on board Flight 843. They'll never be the same. Listen now to the personal thoughts of a radio reporter, a retired policeman, an aspiring actress and model. Listen to what went through their hearts and minds as 200 tons of steel turned into a flaming tomb around them.
The shaken and bruised passengers of Flight 843 shake their heads in disbelief and wonder out loud how they are still alive. For 20 seconds or so, it seems as if the big L-1011 would never stop. As emergency medical technicians check them over for injuries and the mayor comes to bid his respects, the nightmare plays again and again through their minds, happening so quickly there was no time for advance warning.
We'd just gotten off the ground. We came down. You could hear stewardesses yelling, keep your head down, keep your seatbelts on. And before I knew it, I mean, once the plane had stopped, the doors were already open, the rafts were already inflated, and people were getting out.
For retired policeman Bill Kistner, it is worse. His seat located right next to the emergency door, which is right above the flyer. When they opened that door to escape, the deadly smoke and flames forced them back.
Well, there were people that were screaming and yelling and not sure what was going on. And with flames and smoke nearby, we were in an enclosed jet, and it was a little scary, you know.
So you heard a pop after the plane came right down?
I'm not really sure if I heard a pop before we hit the runway the second time or after. I can't be sure, but there was a pop.
CBS News reporter Tim Schell, who happened to be on board, says he knew right away something was wrong.
The plane felt strange as it was taking off. It wasn't taking off in the manner that it was supposed to feel. Didn't feel the way it was supposed to feel. It got off the ground for a few seconds, but not very far. The nose wasn't that high off the ground, and you knew something was wrong. And then it came crashing down to the ground. It was a pretty good jolt. And then it continued to hurtle down the runway, and it was pretty clear that the pilot was doing his best to stop it, and it couldn't stop right away. And it veered off the tarmac just a little bit, and then the nose gear must have snapped, and that's what helped it stop. The nose gear probably dug into the ground, and then it was a real violent jolt.
Wiring model Christina Ritter lost 3 years' worth of professional photographs in the flames, flew on this flight standby, begging to get on. Somehow she feels there is a lesson in all this.
I did everything possible to get on that flight. I was not supposed to be on the flight, and I was put on at the last minute. I wish I'd stayed a few more days in Milan. I think I'm really lucky, and I'm not a religious person, so I mean, I'm lucky, really lucky. But I think I'm going to go home later and have a good cry.
Did you hear what she said? Have a good cry. Those words probably sum up the feelings of all 291 people on board. Reporting live at Kennedy Airport, I'm Ed Miller. Back to you.
It must have been terrifying. Thank you, Ed. Here to give us an expert's point of view on the TWA fire is Jim McKenna. He's a transport editor of Aviation Week magazine. Now, obviously, there's a whole spectrum of things that could have gone wrong that caused that pilot to abort the flight. Was the runway perhaps a factor in this?
That's something the investigators are going to have to look at. This runway runs right along Jamaica Bay, which is home to thousands of birds. Birds are a problem for the airplanes because they loaf around on those runways, and very often airplanes taking off will suck a bird into the engine.
In fact, such a problem that they occasionally go out there and weed them out. They actually shoot birds. Is that right?
The Port Authority regularly patrols the runways with pickup trucks to sweep the birds off the runway.
Paint us a picture here. You're in an air. He actually got off the ground. How fast is he going during rotation or takeoff, and how much of a last-second decision did this have to be? It must have been.
Well, an airplane will be doing 150 to 180 miles an hour.
So he had no
at the point
time.
at which the pilot pulls back, so it's a split-second decision for the pilot.
And just how unusual is it for him to abort a flight after it's actually taken off the ground?
Well, the pilot has to make the decision in a split second whether it's safer for him to carry that plane back off the ground and attempt to land or to put it back down immediately.
Anybody who's ever landed at LaGuardia in an L-1011 or a heavy jet realizes they hit the ground pretty hard and screech to a halt so they don't go out into the water.
Right.
This is Kennedy with much longer runways. Now, I hate to do a what-if, but it would be problematic if this had happened at LaGuardia.
There's little doubt that it would have been an entirely different scenario had this plane been taken off at LaGuardia.
It's like 4,000 feet more to work with.
That's right.
What about the plane itself? Is this a plane with a history of problems or not?
No more than any other aircraft operating today.
Go ahead.
In the end, they're going to look at the pilot first, his judgment. Is that the way this thing begins?
They'll look at the pilot simultaneously with any failures of systems on the airplane and then begin to narrow down their probe.
Jim McKenna, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.